The night began with fireworks and ended with silence. It began with a nation on its feet, screaming with joy, and it ended with families on their knees, screaming for a different reason entirely. For 40 long years, Mexico had waited for a moment like this. 40 years of heartbreak, of near misses, of coming so close only to watch the dream slip away. And then, on a single unforgettable night at the Estadio Azteca, it finally happened. But by the time the sun rose the next morning, the celebration had become a crime scene. 4 people were dead. And the question everyone is now asking is the one no one wants to answer. Stay with us, because what happened in Mexico City is not just a football story. It is a story about how triumph and tragedy can live in the very same heartbeat. More than 1 million people. That is the number you need to hold in your mind. More than 1 million people poured into the center of Mexico City that night, drawn by something bigger than a game. They came to witness history. They came because their team, El Tri, had done what no generation in 4 decades had managed to do. They had broken the curse. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly how that impossible joy curdled into unimaginable horror, how the safest celebration in the country became the most dangerous place to stand, and why the warnings that came before were not enough. If stories like this one matter to you, if you want the full picture and not just the headline, subscribe now and turn the notifications on, because what is coming is a story most outlets are only telling you half of. Here is the contradiction at the heart of everything. Authorities knew the crowds would be enormous. They planned for it. They deployed resources. They prepared. They told the public that safety came first. And yet, despite all of it, 4 people never made it home. How does a night that everyone saw coming end in a disaster that supposedly no one could stop? That is the tension. That is the wound. And that is what we are going to pull apart, piece by piece. Let us go back to the beginning, to the match itself. Ecuador arrived at the Azteca as a serious opponent, disciplined and dangerous. But on this night, Mexico would not be denied. The stadium, that vast concrete cathedral of football, thundered with a sound that had been building for 40 years. And when the first goal struck the back of the net, the roar that erupted could be felt in the streets outside. Then came the second, 2-0. Mexico had ended its knockout drought. The final whistle blew, and in that instant, an entire country exhaled a breath it had been holding since the 1980s. Think about that for a moment. 40 years. 2 full generations of fans who had never once seen this. Grandparents who had given up hope. Children who inherited the ache without ever understanding it. And now, all at once, the wait was over. The joy did not stay inside the stadium. It could not. It spilled out into every avenue, every plaza, every corner of the capital. People flooded toward the center of the city, toward the great gathering place where Mexicans have always come to celebrate what they love most. Flags waved, horns blared, strangers embraced strangers, fireworks lit the sky. It was, by every account, the largest spontaneous celebration the city had seen in years. But that is just the beginning, because as the crowd grew, and kept growing, something began to shift. The open spaces filled, then they overfilled. The joyful press of bodies became a squeeze, and the squeeze became something else, something with no name and no mercy. In a crowd that dense, an individual loses control of their own body. You cannot move where you want to go. You move where the crowd sends you. And when a crowd that size begins to surge, the force it generates is enough to bend steel, enough to lift people off their feet, enough to make breathing itself impossible. Witnesses describe the moment it turned. 1 second there was singing, the next there were screams. Reports point to a possible surge near the front, perhaps triggered by pyrotechnics, perhaps by a sudden movement rippling backward through the mass of people. Investigators are still working to confirm exactly what set it off, but the effect was immediate and catastrophic. People fell. Others could not stop themselves from falling on top of them. And in the crush, the deadliest killer at any large gathering took hold. Not trampling, as many assume, suffocation. Compressive asphyxia, the simple, terrible inability to expand your own chest to draw a breath. 4 people died that way, surrounded by celebration, surrounded by 1 million others, and utterly alone in their final moments. Pull back further, and the picture grows darker still. Several more were injured, some seriously, pulled from the crush by desperate hands and rushed away for help. Families who had come together were separated in the chaos. Phones lit up across the city with frantic calls that went unanswered, and the very fireworks that had lit the sky in celebration now cast their glow over paramedics working against the clock. Before we go any deeper, if this is the kind of coverage you have been searching for, the kind that refuses to look away from the hard truth, subscribe and turn on notifications now, because what this tragedy reveals about the days ahead is something you genuinely need to hear. Here is where it changes completely, because Mexico's story at this World Cup is not over. There is another match coming, a match against England, and that means there will be another celebration, or another heartbreak, and either way, another gathering. Another 1 million people, perhaps more, drawn once again to the same streets and the same squares. And now the question that hangs over the entire nation is impossible to ignore. If it happened once, what stops it from happening again? This is the terrible arithmetic that officials are now confronting. The investigation into what went wrong has already begun. Was it the density of the crowd that exceeded what the space could safely hold? Was it it the pyrotechnics that sparked the panic? Were the barriers and the crowd control measures simply overwhelmed by a scale that no plan had truly accounted for? Every one of these questions carries weight, because every answer will shape whether the next celebration ends in song or in sorrow. And this is the deeper truth the whole story reveals. We build our biggest moments around crowds. We measure our joy by how many people we can pack into one place at one time. The bigger the triumph, the bigger the gathering. But the bigger the gathering, the thinner the line between celebration and catastrophe. That line is always there, invisible, until the moment it is crossed. And by then, it is too late. They told the public that safety came first. And maybe, in the planning rooms and the briefing documents, it truly did. But safety is not measured by intentions. It is measured by outcomes. And the outcome, on this night, was 4 empty chairs at 4 family tables that will never be filled again. Sit with that. 4 people left their homes to celebrate the greatest football night of their lifetimes, and they never came back. A country waited 40 years for a victory, and it took only a few hours for that victory to teach the hardest lesson of all. That no goal, no trophy, no history-making moment is worth a single human life. That behind every roaring crowd are individual hearts, individual breaths, individual people who trusted that they would be safe. The World Cup is meant to bring the world together. It is meant to be a festival of everything that unites us. But this is the part no one wants to say out loud. The excitement, the passion, the sheer overwhelming scale of it all carries a cost. And if we are not careful, that cost is paid in lives. Protecting people cannot be an afterthought. It cannot be a line in a press release. It has to come first. Genuinely first. Before the fireworks, before the flags, before the final whistle. So I will leave you with this. When the next match comes, and the crowds gather once more, what will have changed? Will the lessons of this night be remembered, or forgotten in the rush of the next great moment? What do you think went wrong, and what should be done before another million people fill those streets? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your voice on this. If this story moved you, if it made you stop and think, then like this video, share it, and subscribe so you never miss the full truth behind the headlines. Because there will always be another game, another celebration, another million dreams pouring into the streets. The only question that matters is whether we protect them. The World Cup just took its first victims. Let us make sure they are the last.